make money on MMA? Let be. You want to know who to put it in your parlay? Let be. You want to know our DraftKings stay away? Let be. So, who has the Leslie Smith underdog pick? Who is the Mexican dude and the lesbian chick? Everybody say you mean. Lesbo and The Bean. Who's that out there living their dream? Lesbo and The Bean. Who's that still smoking on the green? Lesbo and The Bean. Come on, y'all, let me hear you scream. Lesbo and The Bean. You wanna make money on
Welcome back, everybody. What a hell of a weekend here at Lat B. If you haven't subscribed, you better get on that because you're losing money. Losing big money. Underdog of the week, Leslie Smith, coming through again with Darren Till. I feel like, how did your weekend go? I feel like someone was giving us a little hit on the verse.
But beautiful. I had a beautiful weekend. It is all. I don't know if it was a great card.
I had
but
fun.
Then
People
I didn't know.
Shit,
I didn't know if am I biased because I got so many right? Is it a more fun night when you get everything correct? Maybe. I think it is. When your DraftKings looks good, is looking all green checks, and your Tapology's all green check marks, everything's green. I love that. That's a good night.
Green means go.
Yeah.
So
especially on the betting sites and stuff.
Right. We just are coming off of a fight night, Gdansk, apparently is the way you pronounce it, and the commentary was a bit. I thought they were calling it Gdansk.
I think that's an American way to say it. I think it's Dansk.
Thanks. Either way.
Anyway.
The commentary was semi-abysmal with Dan Hardy talking about
I didn't really figure out this. Jan Jacek, what? I could just throw that off my tongue. Joanna Jan Jacek, what? So, like 2 years from now, I'll be able to say that in the city name right.
So, did you happen to listen to much of them? Because there was a point in time when Dan Hardy was even just like, oh, if he pulls his legs out, he's going to fall right on his left butt cheek. Did you happen to catch that? It was pretty funny.
I liked it. I listened to the commentary. I just didn't hear that part.
Either way, they didn't do too. I think it's just one of their weaker lineups when they have a lot of other guys that mesh really well. Even though I think those were the two gentlemen, Dan Hardy and his accomplice in crime, do the breakdowns all the time.
I know, and I can't remember that other fellow's name.
To save my life, I gotta tell you.
I don't know where he came from or what. In a weird way, I feel like that's kind of like us. Like when we're gonna be talking about fights later on, and if we build more fame, or when we build more fame, I should say, I will be the person that they're like, I don't know where she came from. Hopefully they are like the same thing. Like, I like her, all right.
Yeah.
I like her, okay.
Blindsided out of nowhere, and so Darren Till, our biggest underdog, not our biggest underdog, but our Lat B pick, was that pick for a reason because we just saw a lot of value in that young man. Now everyone's jumping on the bandwagon. Now everybody's like, Darren Till's going to be one of the greatest. Sorry, we were telling you, if you're listening to the show, Darren Till is going to be a top contender. I don't know about a champion yet because he's still got somebody with a good gas tank and wrestling credentials. He lost to Dalby, one of his only losses. There's a blueprint to beat Till, but he's a fun guy to watch.
He's so young and so explosive. He's a super dangerous guy for the division. He had good head movement already for his age. He didn't get hit by anything. By Cowboy. And everyone wants to throw Till to the wolves right off this, and I love Cowboy Cerrone. I don't think Donald Cerrone is a 170 top 10 guy. I love him at 155. I feel like he ekes the top 10 of the 155.
He's a small 170.
I don't think he's a top 10 guy, so I don't want them. I think Mike Perry's a good next matchup, or that
but he's
step.
Fighting Ponzinibbio.
He's fighting Ponzinibbio. So. But the fans like the Till Perry matchup.
It's got a good amount of heat on it. The scary thing with that whole, if you guys didn't happen to see, Till and Mike Perry got into it at cage side. But I think that Till is way higher level than Perry. And I think Ponzinibbio is right there with Perry.
I think Mike Perry knocks out Cowboy.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah,
I would agree with that. The kind of, everyone keeps, Cowboy's a huge step up in competition. Why would Mike Perry even think he deserves it? I don't think so. And I also heard this, and this is, I'm newer to the game with how the legend of Robbie Lawler. But what I will say in my lifetime, I can now say of watching fights, the small little time that it's been. I can see Robbie Lawler versus Rory McDonald, Robbie Lawler versus now Cowboy Cerrone right in front of my face. And is it fair to say that Robbie Lawler takes 2 years off everyone's fight career? Like just the battle with Robbie Lawler.
Yeah, I agree.
It's over.
I totally agree, and I think that was also a pivotal thing that a lot of people aren't touching on is like, hey, Donald Cerrone was just in a split decision with Lawler 2 months ago.
We called on it. Yeah. That's why we did not pick Donald Cerrone.
Right, and that was one of those big things that as of now, we're picking out some of that good stuff. Unfortunately, though, on this fight night, there did happen to be a fight that fell out. Anthony Hamilton and Wizard whatever face ended up falling out. That was super scary because all of a sudden I had to switch on my cards before anything crapped. So my cards got moved around a lot.
But you want to know what I will say? I got an email from DraftKings telling me about it ahead of time.
Oh, wonderful.
And then I had enough time to do it. So I was thinking maybe it's not DraftKings' fault. Maybe the fighters themselves need to have a time where it's like the cards all clear 2 hours before fight time. I know shit happens.
That's what I was about to say. There's the weirdest things will happen where all of a sudden someone will be like, I can't move my back. And they're just like, it's an hour before the show, dude. I can't move. Give me another cheeseburger. You fucked. That's just the way it goes. But also with that, there was the weight issue that went on with Sam Alvey, and we tweeted back and forth a few times through our account letting fans know that we were going to side with Alvey because he stopped cutting. He didn't make that weight by at least 3 pounds, so he didn't hurt himself.
That was our hopes.
Right. But Sam Alvey,
Yeah.
low output.
Every time.
He's a fade. I would have picked him against his previous opponent, but against any up-and-comer, Sam Alvey's on his way out, and that's just...
This is what else I have to say about Sam Alvey. I'll never, ever, ever put him on a card again hoping for the 100, because when he survives a decision... this is what else you have to say about Sam Alvey. This other guy could be an exciting fighter. Sam Alvey has this weird way of really making a boring fight. What a boring fighter. I love him outside of the ring, and I would be interested in a reality show or even him as a coach for an up-and-coming MMA fighter with him and his wife and whatever's going on there. But don't really want to watch him fight again.
I would agree with that.
Or I would be interested at 205. Give me Sam Alvey at 205 or even 245. Let him get big as fuck because he has that style of a heavyweight. Just a slow, boring, 205
would be
fight.
better than that. He's just not big enough, but he could be. I mean, I've seen 5'10" heavyweights out there. So yeah, with Alvey, definitely.
He had 39 pounds to lose at fight time. Imagine if he was worked out with that 39 pounds on him and then food on top of that. I don't know.
So that MV guy that a lot of people were hyped on with that M1 experience, K1, all that stuff. Didn't really put too good of a showing against Sam Alvey, where I feel like Sam Alvey can be he can be finished, hence the Derek Brunson and a couple. It's not easy to do, but I'm just saying pump the brakes. A lot of people, Evil Twin was all over Remvi, and
didn't get Alvey down at all either.
Yeah, there was one hard left, I think, the entire fight. So still be cautious, both of those guys. But to start off the night, we had Emmett piecing apart Arantes. He had 4 knockdowns in the first round. If you ever want to see a 10-7 round, go back to the first fight of the night. And I had Emmett on a lot of cards, and he really came through with over 100.
I was impressed. Yeah. He has me back on his train.
He moved up those 10 pounds, but he wears it well, even though he's shorter.
Mm-hmm. He looked shredded as a beast. He looked like...
Right. I was really surprised that Arantes got it together after those 4 knockdowns and went to a decision. I could have seen it being stopped.
I thought it was going to be finished.
Right?
I thought it was going to be finished.
Especially after how early the secondary fight of the night was between Lisa Landsberg versus Aspen Ladd. And I don't give a shit what you say.
Back to the first fight, though. Everything we set up was true on that. The American wrestling totally stifled everything.
Right. Overhand right from Alpha
I'm glad we put Emmett on cards, and even though it was the first fight of the night, and didn't put Arantes on anything.
Yeah.
I'm glad all that happened. That was a good decision to make for the DraftKings night.
Agreed.
Go on, sorry. So, on to the lady fight.
To the lady fight, the second night of the fight, we had Aspen Ladd defeating Lisa Landsberg, and I would say the first round, I was cash in the bank. Lisa Landsberg was
good.
Looking amazing. Aspen Ladd had no idea, but when they went into the corner said, hey, take her down, you can get her down there, and I would say that was a TKO to Beachy Scream. I would not say
This is the other thing that I have a big problem with.
that was a TKO.
If anyone can rewatch that. Not only was Lisa Landsberg defending herself appropriately, she also, if you look, she was wearing Aspen Ladd so high on her, she was almost going to shake her off.
Yeah,
she almost had her. She almost had her. So it was an early stoppage, and if she would have gotten up, it would have been fine. Maybe would have been 1-1 round.
That's exactly what I would have thought. And then 3 would have been interesting because it's all the takedown. But did you happen to listen to the audio on that? Because it was ear ringing. She let loose.
What's your best Aspen Ladd impression?
No, I can't. It's no. I can't get high enough. It was definitely a shriek. But either way, a lot of people are like super high on Aspen Ladd.
I agree with you. I agree with you
I don't think
all
she's
day.
a world beater yet.
I think what's going to happen is we're going to have money to be made on betting against Aspen Ladd in the future, because she is going to be a hype train rolling into her next fight. She's going to be wearing a super heavy price tag, and depending on who she goes against, she could be in trouble. There's a lot of women in the 115 that I don't think, 135.
So, yeah, I would agree with that. Definitely someone to keep an eye on, and not in the best ways. But anything else in that fight that stuck out? It was pretty short.
No, yeah, and I mean, Aspen Ladd looked overall better at the end than Lena. But
what I would say though is like, hey, if you're gonna fight Aspen Ladd, take down defense and clinch. You're gonna win a fight. Knees to the body if she doesn't get that takedown, she's losing that fight. If not getting finished with those knees that were getting closer to the head. They're inching up. So, moving on to the next fight, we had Warlley Alves defeat Samil Tahuri. And Tahuri put it in a valiant effort on short notice. Alves looked humongous. It's unbelievable on short notice that he made 170.
I was impressed with some of the shots he took without getting knocked out. I was nervous during that fight because I had him on a few cards.
Yeah, I had Alves as well, and he didn't produce that much. I think he got like 59 points on DK. I had Alves sporadically. I backed off of him a bit. Tahuri put in a good showing, and I think Tahuri is one to watch. He might even move down to 155, but even at 70, I think with a game plan and the out short of notice, there's going to be money to be made on that young man. He's definitely evolving. Alves, what I didn't like, we're still seeing those gas tank issues, which means that's something that's an exploitation that we can see. Alves still being young and working his way up. But I could see potentially Alves moving up to 85 before
I think he's almost going to have to.
Yeah,
his frame is enormous.
He was shoulders above his opponent and muscularly built.
I'm still nervous about him. I don't know how... I'll be more likely to bet Tahuri in the future than Alves.
That's exactly where I'm going.
Even though we were right again.
Right on that
just
call.
To remind you guys.
We're letting you know what we
had a good
foresee.
Week. This is a good week.
But moving on to the next fight, we had a fight that was also almost stopped multiple times over. A decision between Andre Fili over Artem Lobov. I mean, that was a 10-7, 10-8 round easy when Lobov... 10-8 round when Lobov ate that left switch kick to the dome. Fili really kept him on the outside. Good gas tank. I really like what Fili's doing, though. Or in general, I like his movement and his game plan. He was taking a shot to give a shot, and I didn't like that aspect of it. But when Fili decided to put that takedown game into account, he ran away with the fight, where he could have been doing that in the first and second round instead of keeping Artem around for the beginning of that fight. Lobov, you need to go to Bellator. If not, I got a fight for you.
He's done. He wants the UFC. He wants the UFC to let him go.
Oh, he said
his
that?
Contract so he can box.
Paulie.
That's what he said.
And
Paulie. But he even said, I don't think Paulie will want this because he's just looking for a money fight.
Ugh. Yeah, don't really care too much more.
Don't care about either guy, honestly.
Yep.
Artem is a sweet guy, but the biggest thing to happen, and Andre Fili put in a great performance, but because I'm so weary on Artem, I don't know who I'm going to bet still on with Fili next time. I'm glad it played out well for us, but I thought Fili looked good back. But Artem just didn't really do that much to make him frightening. So it's an odd thing. The biggest thing to happen in the whole fight was Conor McGregor watching it.
How sad is that? But that was the biggest pop of the entire night, was just him. And during this fight, the ref stopping the bout in order to tell Conor to shut the hell up, so he could keep watching that fight.
Because he was giving Conor advice to...
Right, as a fan, when he was in the spectator, not in a corner position.
And the other thing, I thought it was interesting that Feely yelled at Conor, why don't you defend your title before you talk all this shit? And I thought it was even more funny before the fight started, when Artem was walking into the ring, Feely was walking around the ring doing the Conor McGregor $1 million walk.
Interesting. Yeah. I don't know if I ended up catching that.
You could look up the video online. It's pretty funny.
That is funny.
So backstage, Conor McGregor's been busted for calling Feely a faggot twice. So that's been everything going on with all this bout.
So I did hear that multiple times over, and you being...
I think it's bullshit.
Yeah, and that's... What do you think?
I stick up for him because before, when he says stuff, when he's I don't know what each country... But a gay slur is a gay slur at this point, Conor. And you're an international star. You got to be different than Saudi Arabia. Have a different value. So maybe calling Feely faggot is not the best way to go. And there's 1,000 other words out there to use.
And I believe even on the LatB Twitterverse... Follow us at Lesbo and The Bean on Twitter. There was a fan that specifically had something that LatB put him in their place about. I can't specifically recall. Do you remember what that post was?
Does not having Fight Pass make me gay?
And I believe our response was beautiful.
Half of our staff is gay, and we all have Fight Pass. So lame is the word you're looking for, not gay.
I would agree with that 100%.
There's other words. There's other words, people. Come on. I know we live in a politically correct time, but there's things that are painful to every single nationality, race, creed, color. Everybody has their line, and, you got to know when to draw it, kind of.
Moving on to the next fight, we had...
The more you know.
Alvey versus MB. We talked about this a little bit already. We ain't putting Alvey on shit. MB is still a little hesitant on against somebody of caliber. I don't think he's going to show as well. Moving on to the next fight after that, we had Brian Kelleher knock out Damon Stasiak in the third round. I ended up switching this fight post weigh-ins. I really liked Stasiak's look. I really thought he looked together. He hurt Kelleher early in that fight with a couple body shots. Kelleher did a good game plan and shook it off. Kelleher just kept bringing the boom, pun intended. And
I like Kelleher a lot after this fight.
He looked good,
he was interesting.
He looked different than his last fight by far.
It was one of the things I specified when I picked it. This friggin' picture that Topology uses is such bullshit. It does him no justice. And if you can see him in the flesh, he's like, okay, all right, I'm going to pick Kelleher all day over this other dude, Stasiak. I'm going to pick Kelleher all day. But when you see this picture that they have, this winky, it looks like a guy just a battle in the forehead growing. Just battling forehead growth. He looks better with the shaved head now and the beard. He looks tough.
I would say a main event could also have won of that because that hair, I hated on Donald. I've never liked Donald with hair. He always needs to be bald.
I do not mind him at all with hair, but that hair was struggling.
Exactly.
I don't mind if you're going to have hair, and I don't mind if you have a receded hairline. But he was friggin' tired. He shouldn't have been doing that fight.
Well, that's why we made so much money off of it.
Yeah.
So, moving on to the next fight, we had a unanimous decision of Darren Till over Nasrat Harpquest.
Or Marcin Held over...
Didn't I say that, Marcin Held?
No, you said Darren Till.
Oh, my bad. I'm getting all mixed up. So, a decision held over Nasrat Baby Gast with the strong nipple game.
Baby Gastelum.
Baby, and other people I feel like were saying, wow, Gastelum's little brother, you heard it here first, they listen in to that beat. So, this fight, I actually, even though held one, I thought this could have been a split decision. I thought Nasrat looked really good. Coming out of King's End MMA, he reminded me of a Dariush in his stand-up, good takedown defense. Solid on the ground. Held should have been able to supposedly submit him with all those credentials.
Held's overrated.
I was going to say, I feel like Held is going to be a fade from now on. And I'm liking some Nasrat. Give this dude another 2 years. He's going to be a scary guy.
I'm sure you can name 3 fighters off the top of your head 10 years ago. This is like 10, even maybe 15 years ago of fighting, when the wrestling game really got heavy in the UFC and how it made for boring fights all of a sudden. Pretty much what you said. Who's fights later tonight? The big friggin' guy that ended up Blachowicz.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Pretty much what you said was going to happen. We're going to see it. Once a guy that's good enough at wrestling gets in, it'll stop the fight and stifle it and lay, and it'll just be a boring fight. That's what Held is, but you can't do that anymore in UFC. I feel like coming up against stronger opponents, they're
ready to stifle just that with a sprawl.
And I agree with you too. I don't know who against, but I am interested in Nasrat for the future.
Yeah.
Baby Gastelum.
With that strong nipple game.
Jesus. Cut your eye open.
Yeah, you can feed a family with those things. Moving on to the next fight, we had Oscar Pichota versus Jonathan Wilson. Jonathan Wilson, you need to get the hell out of here. You are not UFC material. You haven't been. You got a couple good wins, flash knockouts. Now they more look like in the perspective of your career. But the gas tank issues weren't fixed. I was hoping that Waco was
I can't wait till we have a sound effects board, and we are going to have a sound for people when they need to get the hell out of here.
Yeah, you need to move it on.
Move out. It would be like, to the left. Everything you own is in a box to the left.
What I did like with Oscar Pichota was good gas tank. He had constant pressure. He was confident enough in his ground game that he was throwing some spinning heel kicks and at 185, 205 region for guys to be doing that. I really, really like. On the ground, just like we were saying here on the show, all those submissions he was getting earlier on in his career aren't going to happen even against the Wilson because it is still UFC. So Pichota's someone to watch out for. I'm not as hyped as most people are. I think people are really flying his banner high right now after this win, but Wilson looked like garbage. So
yeah, we were like, okay, you beat Wilson.
Yeah, exactly. Not the biggest deal in the world right now, but someone to keep an eye on. Anything else you want to throw in on that one?
No, that's all said.
Yeah. So then we had a fight ending in a submission. Jan Blachowicz versus Devin Clark. I ended up getting a big stink egg on this. I had a Clark beating this. And Blachowicz came out looking better than he ever has. He was been a little soft in most of his fights. This fight, he looked every bit of TRT that you could hope for in a fighter. And the experience and gas tank definitely. Clark ate 2 body shots and was like, no thank you. Gas tank went out the door. And standing rear naked choke, no hooks in. Rare. Very rare, but I think that's more a testament to Devin Clark and the gasness, how gassed he gets, and he's done it in other fights. He will give up positions due to gas tank.
He should not be in the UFC, and I would press the button right now that would say, get out.
Oh, that might not be a bad idea. Yeah, he has so much potential, but he is so...
He just lost to Jan Blachowicz stand-up.
No hooks. Rear naked.
I would say that Jan took more head trauma in that fight than anyone falling on the... Did you hear after the rear naked choke? It was like his body, he was so used to a rear naked choke and having hooks in and being on his back doing it that when the ref tapped him to let go, he let go so fast he just fell. He was like holding on for... He was pretty much... It wasn't even a rear naked choke as much as just a pure choke. Because if... Jan's whole body weight is on him.
That's some shit you see out on the playground.
He let go his whole...
Yeah. That's some shit you see on the playground.
But good fight. Good for Jan. I'm glad I had him everywhere.
I did have him on a few as well. I had Clark on not so many because of that gas tank. So, yeah, Jan came through on me as well. I listened to our show, and that was a nugget.
I only played Lesbo and The Bean cards, and I did... all right on DraftKings. Enough to play basketball a week, save money aside. Come on, DraftKings on. Not doing so great at football this year. No, I'm not good at fantasy football.
Specifically football this year, I feel like there's been more injuries than I've ever seen.
This is what happened to me last night, because every week I have a real, so this other player's injured, this other player. Last night, I had 2 players left to play, and it was going to be the first game I won all week or all year yet in my work league. It would have within the first week I won 2 players. I'm like, all right, I got the Falcons. It's gonna be fine. And then all of a sudden, the black smoke monster rolled in from Lost and covered the field. I thought something was wrong with my TV for a minute. Like, I didn't have the sound up, so I was just, and I'm like, oh, are you shitting me? Did my TV just shit out? Like, are you kidding? But it was so much fog. Anyway,
So
back to the real sports.
Back to real competition. We had a co-main event in Carolina Kowalkiewicz
Good
versus
one. Thanks.
Jody
Good
Escobar.
thanks.
We called it all day. If you had the money left over to be able to afford KK, she was the highest priced fighter. She did score over 100 points in a one-sided bout. Escobar, even though she lost handedly, I do think that she's someone I'm going to look out for in the division because she ate so many knees and punches. A lot of women would have given up in there, and she went to a decision.
The amount of knees she ate in the first alone, I thought it was over.
You would have thought, exactly.
Oh my God.
So that's where it's like, hey, Escobar's got heart. You can make money off heart because she's going to put women. She is now in a different level.
That's how we pick our Leslie Smith underdog picks.
Yeah,
it usually is heart. It usually is like,
Escobar's got it.
Because a lot of the times our underdog picks aren't necessarily do we think they're going to win as much as we think on DraftKings they're going to be worth every cent you pay for them to make a really fat card.
Yep.
So I feel like she could be someone that going against, if they throw her against a cookie monster like Esparza ain't going to knock her out.
Right.
Is she going to finish her? Because this was just a stand-up fight the whole entire time.
Escobar Esparza, sign me up. I watch that fight all day. That sounds like actually a really, really fun
There it
fight.
is. You heard it here first. Cookie Monster, get on that phone. Get on that line.
Woo, woo. Moving on to the main event. We already talked about it. Till Cerrone, take a year off if you decide to come back at all. Till, I don't think it's Perry the next fight. The people that are open in the division that I can immediately see for
I have a business plan for Cowboy.
All right,
I don't think he needs to fight anymore.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
I love him too much. And do I think he could? Yeah, I think he can fight for another 2 years.
At what cost?
Exactly.
You don't have a nose anymore, homie.
So I think he takes money. He has enough friggin' sponsors. And I think the sponsors would pay for all this that I'm about to talk about. All right, Cowboy. You have Monster Energy drink. You have, I don't even know, Fram. I don't know who sponsors Cowboy. He has all those kind of sponsors, though. You have them soup up the BMF Ranch. Soup it up. Make it almost like Rob Dyrdek's Fantasy Factory, but you make it the ranch like that because Cowboy's all high octane, tons of sports and everything. Not only are you training actual fighters, you do the reality show. You build it up super nice, but you have all this stuff that they're doing in their off time that's entertaining for us to watch in the reality show. And that pays for everything.
Right.
BMF Ranch. I think you start pushing it. I don't think there's any reason that BMF Ranch can't be as big as Alpha Male. I don't think there's any reason at all. It could be the alpha male for the 155 to 185, maybe 155 to 175 guy. I think that is what BMF Ranch could offer. He's Schilling. You could have Kurt out there doing some kickboxing drills and stuff. He has all his connections over at Winklejohn's. Could be an interesting thing. Reality show, Cowboy.
I totally agree, and there's more and more fighters starting to retire, and you can always have old fighters that are just wanting to roll around, hanging out for autographs and pictures and all sorts of stuff. He lives in a beautiful place out in Colorado. People want to go visit.
Totally
out there.
Interesting.
Yep.
It'd be super fun. He could have random celebrities on. He could have certain fighters come on too. Speaking of random celebrities.
Please.
Did you hear Tyrone Woodley talk about Demi Lovato and said she should take an MMA lady fight? And she'd be able to beat a lot of the ladies
I
who
know
are fighting.
Lovato's like a blue belt, but it's like a Gracie blue belt, which is legit. Like, she's legitimately training. I'd be interested, but it's one of those things. If millionaires don't wake up to train in the morning.
I used to be a hater, and now I am a fan of Demi Lovato.
Oh, damn, this is where he got you.
No, when she got her belt.
Oh,
When people get their belt, it's really touching to me. I feel like I almost had a tear when Eddie Bravo, the belt that he got when he beat, did he beat Hoist Gracie?
He beat, yeah.
There's so many Gracies.
It wasn't Hoist.
See, there's so many. I know
who it was. It was what made Eddie Bravo, I think, Henner Gracie. I think it was Henner Gracie.
I was yeah, did he beat Conor Gracie? I don't know. Henner. I think you might be right.
Yeah.
Okay, so he got a black belt when he won that fight.
Yep.
And the black belt is so not black anymore. It looks like faded denim. It looked like that denim jacket Mike Perry was wearing. It's all faded. He gave that belt to Tony Ferguson when he got his UFC belt this time. So Tony got his black belt from Eddie.
Yeah.
It was pretty touching. And he gave him that black belt. The one that he got.
Right.
I don't know. The one carried down with the lineage. So it's touching to me when people get their belts.
Yeah,
if it's done in the right way. Don't go to the YMCA and 3 weeks from now, show me a belt, then you go and get something.
Right. It was definitely a good show, though. I had fun. There was a couple snoozers in a row there. But I thought it was an overall good fight night. I even saw a couple people on my Twitter say, like, oh, I'm glad I missed this card because I didn't really see anything, and I'm like, you're a douchebag, unfollowed immediately.
2 things with this card. One, not only was it an entertaining card as far as I was concerned, I loved the time. I loved watching a Sunday fight. I felt like this is what NFL fans and college football fans must feel like. If I didn't have to work later that evening, I would have popped a beer.
Yep.
Barbecued. Done a little something.
Living the dream.
I know, so nice. I didn't mind the day card, and I thought for a day card, one more thing, which I don't know if I've ever said this. Fight Pass ran seamless.
I thought it
did
well too.
Beautiful.
I agree.
And then it made me question: is it because only 10 other people were watching this?
I do think it ran well, but overall the weekend was good. There was EBI as well that ended up going down on Fight Pass.
That happened until late last night.
Yeah, I ended up not watching it all. I did catch a good amount of it though. But even the open palm strikes that Ibrahim was talking about with Joe Rogan, fun stuff. I'm really excited. Again, we're still in infant stages of all these combative sports, and I really like that the UFC is taking interest to alternative means of combat sports, not just MMA. They're doing this ground with open palm strikes kind of stuff, and it's really fun to see. There was also a couple other organizations running. There was some Twitter knockouts rolling around there, some disgusting body shots and
some disgusting decisions.
If you didn't happen to catch Shlemenko versus Gegard Mousasi, this is what we've been saying all along here, that, hey, the UFC guys aren't looking as good as they always were. And is it more the UFC guys are on their way out that go to Bellator, or that Bellator's of caliber? And I'm starting to think Bellator's getting to be that next caliber of fighter. Rory McDonald arguably has a win over the current champion. And if there's somebody to beat the UFC's current champion at 170, is Rory McDonald.
I can't wait to watch Rory fight again. And he, to me, is the only guy that's been smart about the time he's taking for a young guy, taking the time he needs between fights instead of just, I'll fight 5 times this year. As much as I want to see him fight over and over again, all these fighters, I want him to stay around for a while. That's how you build superstars. And you can't build superstars if 3 years from now, all of our super Chuck Liddells and Tito Ortiz and our superstars from yesteryear start showing signs, and we have a bunch of Muhammad Ali's walking around. Like, it's just not going to happen. I even think football, we're in a dangerous place with football, with the traumatic brain injury and everything changing like that I want these guys to be smart. I think Demetrius Johnson even put out or did an article or an interview, something saying that guys really need to think about how to evade shots. Like, that needs to be they need to start putting it as a priority in their training.
Right.
And I think that is a big thing. Dominic Cruz would probably say the same. A bunch of greats would probably say the same thing. Yeah, I would
agree. DJ says it all the time. With that Mousasi, though, did you end up catching any of the highlights of that main event on Bellator?
Yes. I watched the whole fight.
I did as well, and I don't think Gegard won that fight.
I agree with you all day. All day.
And that was just, it all started off with that left hand potentially breaking his orbital, but after that, Mousasi didn't look the same, and all credit to Shlemenko.
He could not see out of that eyeball. I cannot believe they it was the, first land of the fight.
Yeah, like,
boom.
yeah. Yep.
And his eye swell. I never seen an eye swell up so fast, so quick. Usually that's stuff that happens, like, they might take the hit in the first round, but we don't see that kind of swelling until, like, the press conference.
Right.
That shit was unbelievable. I can't believe that on the second time the doctor went in to look at it, I thought it's over.
Yeah,
there's no way you
over.
can see.
Yep.
He opened up his eye and put the flashlight in there. You couldn't even see an eyeball move around.
Did you happen to see the gif of Gegard trying to grab the ring at the end of the third round?
Yes,
and
no
that
depth
perception
yeah.
gone. So he fought that way, but I do think that affected the fight a lot. But Bellator's got some beasts out there. And the debut, did you happen to see the other devastating finish that happened earlier in the night on Bellator there against their Hardy, their boxer, that went up against a debuting fighter in Bellator? She had a few amateur bouts of kickboxer, pieced her apart kickboxing.
Oh, she was a boxer, and she was a great boxer, right? She was a boxing champion.
Yes.
And she went in and she won her last fight.
A few fights.
Yeah, and then she was looking good, and she went in this time.
Yeah, and this girl came in, nobody knew her, and everyone's like, she's going to get pieced apart. That was a good bet if you picked the under girl. I just don't have enough time to look at all the undercards on all those. So that was
honestly, here's the shout out, DraftKings. Why don't you start putting some good Bellator?
Oh,
you don't have to do all the Bellator cards, but you start putting them on DraftKings. You're gonna build their audience a little bit.
Do I want to trigger some people right now? Because I'm about to
trigger.
Have you ever heard of Counter Move?
Remember that old thing?
They were able to have Bellator bouts.
True. A lot of others sometimes. Yeah.
DraftKings, you're not able to put Bellators. It's unreal. Those Bellator cards are going to be where you're going to get bigger fluctuations of ranges in wagers or in points scored. There's just a lot of upsets, but that would make a fun night just because you don't know kind of what's going to happen. Get on it, DraftKings. Anything else you got in the Twitterverse that is escaping me right now? I can't think of anything else that I've really wanted to hit on. We talked about my Perry's bad jacket. I think it looked like he could just come out of in the back.
Have you seen any of the Rose Namajunas and Joanna stare downs? Joanna face off?
A couple of them. Rose is getting a little heated. I saw on one of them, I think.
Oh, did you? No, Stone Cold.
Okay, never mind.
Stone Cold Killer.
Then
Hashtag
it was
thug.
clickbait.
Yeah, I hope it's not true. Somebody said that they heard a rumor that the Rose JJ fight was off.
Oh, I haven't heard that yet.
I have not heard it from any confirming sources. So, fingers crossed that is totally not true. Dirty old rumor.
So, do you know of the rumor that Cyborg and Holly have supposedly agreed to terms only if USADA, WADA, and Yamama end up piss testing them at the same times, like twice a day, 6 in the morning, 6 at night? I'm making those times up, but either way, they're supposedly verbally agreed, but somebody's not signing the contract.
This is what I believe. Cyborg's doing this because Holly's people are nervous about Holly taking the fight and their excuses that Cyborg has popped in the past. And so Cyborg, to get ahead of the train, was all, well, she's from a dirty camp, and I've been tested this many times, so how about we're tested the same amount of times? And Holly comes out, well, I've been tested more than you this year. And Cyborg's like, I wasn't saying that at all. Let's just have a match and have a fight where we both get tested the same amount of times. So that was what I gathered from the whole thing. I don't know what Holly Holmes... To me, Holly's ducking a fight.
Woo! It's not an easy fight, but I'd say for Cyborg, one of the most interesting fights in the division, if there's an interesting fight for her, is Holly Holmes, just because she has the ability to stay on the outside and really wear on that gas tank that we don't know if Cyborg really has. Darren Dame would have had that option as well, but she ran, so I don't know what you want to do there.
I don't know if I really... Everyone said Holly is the best matchup for Cyborg because of her style.
Yep. 100%.
I do not think Holly has had any close to any kind of fight like this.
Agreed.
She has not fought.
Agreed.
Holly hasn't fought near the... I don't even think Holly's... Has she even fought Amanda Nunes? because she was pieced apart by Shevchenko.
I don't think she has.
I don't think she has
I don't
either.
think she has
I don't
either.
think she. Yeah. So I would say Holly had the easiest run through people. I thought she had easy fights all the way through to Ronda. I mean, not that there's any easy fights, but everyone that says she could be the greatest of all time because of beating Ronda, and if she were to beat Cyborg, yeah, if she were to beat Cyborg, that's the hard part of the equation.
So, but the shitty thing is that Holly will be known as the greatest of all time for beating Cyborg, but is Cyborg considered the greatest of all time?
No, because of the dirty, yeah.
It's such a like weird dynamic in the division, and it's only about to get dirtier.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else. Dan Hooker versus Mark Diakessi is booked for the UFC 219.
One more time, the first name?
Dan Hooker. I'll show you a picture. You'll know exactly.
I know Hooker. Tall, gangly. He's tall as fuck. Any other ones off the top of your head?
Interesting off the top of my head with that, I think Hooker is going to be a huge underdog on that fight, and I think, and I've said it from the beginning, I think the Bone Crusher is a little overrated, and I know that's huge to say because everyone is hot on him, but
I think you have a good call on that, and there's money to be had on that fight because it's just styles makes fight, and Hooker is a very imposing fighter as big as he is, and Diakessi does give up already a little bit of size in the division against probably the biggest guy he's going to see in the division in Hooker. Honestly, Hooker's going to have to move up in weight soon in his career as well.
I'm so excited about 218. And I don't care about the main event at all. If the main event wasn't on the card, or 217, I'm sorry. If the main event wasn't on the card, I could give a shit. I think all 4 of the fights that are other on the main event or on the main card are better than the main event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree.
And
that
it's
is
not
a stack
selling.
Night.
And this is Joe Rogan's explanation, like he's a doctor for it not selling. Well, GSP beat Johnny Hendricks 4 years ago. So that's post Ronda or pre Ronda,
It's been a long time.
It's been a long time.
Yep.
I don't think there's too much else. We can probably roll into the fight card.
Moving into the breakdown.
What fight night is it?
Breakdown. We have a fight night 119 Sao Paulo, Brazil. You know where we're coming, brach. We're gonna bring the juice, brach. We're gonna bring the pain. Are we
fighting in a high city in Brazil? I'll look it up.
I'm pretty sure it's at sea level, brach.
Okay.
We got a 13 fight card that's going to probably turn into 9 fight card by the end of the goddamn weekend because that's the way these cards have been going as of late. People falling out left and right. Not too many debuts. We're going to have a lot of a card that's going to shake up a lot of the divisions because we don't have an influx of fighters. This is going to be at the beachside. It is going to be main event. Lyoto Machida versus Derek Brunson.
The numbers are not out on DraftKings, so you guys know there is no lines out right now. So we are just going to go with what we think they're going to tell you. And if it's super different, maybe you'll get a bonus show this week. Maybe not. The reason they call them bonus shows is because you don't always get them.
Agreed. And if you remember, on YouTube, you can also subscribe and hit that little bell, and it'll send you a notification as soon as it goes on there. But subscribe, and you're going to be able to be one of the people making these big money plays on our underdogs of the weekend. There's a couple on this card that
I made 500 or 400% this weekend back.
Yeah, I definitely was in the profit as well. So if people are smart, they definitely start tagging along. So we're going to move from the bottom up, starting off the night with a debuting Marcelo Golom versus Cristiano Colombo. And I just said that we didn't have many debuting fighters. This is the only debuting fighter of the night in Golom. Colombo has been in the UFC for a few fights now, coming off of a loss against Luis Henrique in a submission 10 months ago. Colombo has been a fade since he got in. I thought he was already old at 37 when he came in, being 34, 35, but he's a very plodding forward, 6'5", no head movement at all, very little gas tank, and known to be more of a submission fighter. He has an 80-inch reach against the debuting 6'4", 25-year-old Sao Paulo native. We don't have the reach on this young man, but I did happen to catch some fights on Golom, and He is all the bit of 25 years old. He still looks like he's growing into his body for heavyweight. He tends to weigh in and around that 240 range. He doesn't max out or even looks like he maxed out, but he's not that. He doesn't have that belly that Colombo has. He doesn't have that Dunlap. Glom is definitely just athletic. So I think that's going to take him very far. This is going to be a really fun prospect. Has really good movement, Glom. On the ground, educated. Good hips. Good gas tank. Again, the competition level that he's been fighting out of Brazil hasn't been the highest caliber.
It hasn't been any caliber. Guys with zero records.
Exactly. And him being only 5-0. This is definitely going to be the biggest test in his career. And it's a big step up, but I think Colombo's on his way out. Colombo, the biggest thing he has for him is, again, those submissions and his
last
size,
5 fights.
His size.
Just Gom's last 5 fights.
Right.
His opponents' combined fight total of the amount of fights they fought all together were 5.
Yeah. He's definitely fresh
He's
in
green.
the scene. Very green. So this being the first fight of the night, we tend to like to stay away from these fights, but I am going to put Glom on a few. I do think he has the power to finish Colombo's no head movement in the first round. I think Colombo's on his way out. Even on the ground, I feel like I saw Glom have enough submission defense that Colombo's not coming in anything too crazy. TKO round 1, for me, Glom, again, stay away on most cards. He's going to be spattered a little bit in there.
I will not put either fighter on any card, and I'm going with Colombo decision. I just think that UFC caliber against, you might be able to knock out a whole bunch of dudes that are going to stand right in front of you that have never been in the octagon before, but this guy's been in front of the UFC lights. He's 37 years old. He has an 80-inch reach. Very few reaches are going to touch that. He's going to push him away, be out of gas. First fight of the night, Colombo decision.
Ooh.
I will not put it on anything.
Splitting it up. Starting off the night fun. So moving on to the next card, we have a 125-pound flyweight fight with Jared Brooks versus Division Alcantara. Alcantara coming in with a 12-0 record. His last fight debuting against Beltran, Marco Antonio Beltran, who is more than likely out of the UFC himself. But he's coming off of the Brazilian jungle fight scene, also out of Para, Brazil. Jared Brooks being 13-0. This is one of those O's gotta go's fight. In these both being undefeated fighters. Brooks coming out of Detroit, Michigan, definitely coming in with a solid ground game wrestling, being that with a high pace. Being 5'3", the height advantage is going to go to Alcantara with 2 inches at 5'5", and the reach is going to be a 1-inch difference going to Alcantara. So Jared Brooks losing on both of those battles. But with these wrestlers, I think they really are good at getting underneath the shots and getting to those legs immediately. Jared Brooks also coming off of his debut split decision win over Eric Shelton, and I was very high on Shelton as a debut. I really like Shelton as a prospect in the division as well. Brooks coming off of a pancrase career, getting mixes of finishes, submissions, and TKOs in there. I think that the competition in the background is fairly the same. I think that both of these fighters, interestingly enough, are really getting put in now when they both could have other fights that they could be winning because they both have young careers.
I'm changing to Golm right now.
Oh, no.
Because I think he can, if we were in Brazilian fighter.
Yeah.
He can be
the
a big old
flowing.
gorilla in there. But I don't think
Even if it goes to decision in Brazil, it could tend to go bad just because we are in Brazil, and that's going to play a factor in some of our other fights.
So I'm changing to Golm. I am going to put, because the Colombo, he doesn't have a gas tank at all. So I'm going to put second round knockout Golm.
Dun, dun, dun.
But I'm staying away from that.
Still sporadically only putting that on there. Do not overload that on your cards on DK. But either way, I was going to say...
Alcantara.
With Alcantara versus Brooks, I think that wrestling is going to play a factor, and I think that Brooks can make this a decided one-sided wrestling match, and I feel like that's what it's going to happen. Brooks tends to put a pace on people, and Alcantara hasn't really felt that yet. In his debut win in the UFC against Beltran, Beltran isn't the UFC caliber that Brooks is. I think there's a split decision, if not heavy decision. I'm gonna put Brooks in there, maybe a little bit, not too much on DK, just because I don't see the finish coming, and I'm seeing a split kind of coming in this way. How do you feel about this
I got
fight?
Jared Brooks as well. I think it's going to be a little more decisive. We are in Brazil. It could be a robbery. That would be really shitty. I just think he has so much pressure right away. He does have fast little hands.
Yep.
So I think he's going to pepper him away. Both guys have a decent ground game, so we could see a lot of reversals in there. But I also am not going to put Brooks on too many because we are in Brazil, and I feel Brooks' decision in my heart, but everything wants to say if it's close like the split you see, hometown going to win all day. Hometown going to win all day.
Especially in Brazil.
When I'm looking at the X of the Brooks loss on my Tapology, I'll always argue, well, it was in Brazil, and we both think he won that fight.
All right,
but I got Brooks' decision.
Preset explanation. So moving on to the next fight, we have a lightweight bout, 155 pounds, Hakron Diaz versus Jared Gordon. Both of these fighters being veterans in the UFC. Gordon coming with a 13-1 record, only having, I believe, one fight in the UFC, and that was to Michel Quinones, which was a TKO 3 months ago. Hakron Diaz being a potential contender for the belt for a little while, but has kind of had a couple losses in a row to Andre Fili as of a year ago, and Cub Swanson, which both of those are caliber fighters. Hakron also has wins over Makashvili and Darren Elkins, the damage. Also only losing to Ricardo Lamas. So Hakron Diaz is really losing to high-level Fili iffy on there. Diaz comes in with a heavy wrestling base. Even though he's a Brazilian fighter, he really has a wonderful double leg takedown. Very smooth, very fast, gets to the hips quickly. And Gordon has good hips. Coming out of New York, he's also somewhat of a wrestler. I think that the pace and experience goes to Diaz. And the variety of strikes, Diaz does mix up a good takedown to striking, even though Diaz doesn't have the power. Power is going to go to Gordon. Diaz coming out of Nova União, being 33 years old, to the 29. Gordon, that is 5'9". The reach advantage is going to go to Diaz by an inch. As I was saying before, I got Diaz in a decision, especially being a hometown guy coming out of Nova União. Gordon is coming into enemy territory, and I just think that this is going to be kind of a boring fight. Maybe there's money to be made on Gordon on the TKO just because he does have the power of the two fighters. But I could just as much see Diaz also getting a submission. I got Diaz decision. I'm going to stay away from this one as well. I think there's more money to be made later on in the night.
I don't think Gordon has power for the knockout. Technical knockout, that would have to be from ground and pound if I'm looking at his last fights, and I don't see him doing that to Hakron Diaz. Hakron Diaz has taken a lot of damage and been in there with bigger dogs that have, with a lot heavier pressure. Like Cub Diaz, like Fili, especially the Fili he saw. Cub, unreal amount of pressure. Hakron Diaz here, also at 33, also fighting in Brazil. We have no idea as far as he could be on tons of juice as well.
Yeah. Especially out of that camp.
It's going to be a decision. It's going to be a boring decision. I don't think there's going to be points to be made on either guy. I won't have Gordon on anything. I don't think Diaz is going to be overpriced. I think this is going to be a lot closer on DraftKings than it should be.
If this is like an 8-1, 8-1, I got Diaz on DK on that because he's going to have the takedown out of the two.
If this is close, I think you put Diaz on everything. And I don't think that DraftKings is going to see the value in Diaz because of the double loss that he had. I don't think they were lucky that their odds makers, for some reason, still don't get it when it comes to UFC. That is something we're still lucky with the DraftKings.
You and the fans listening.
Yeah.
So, moving on to the next fight, we have a welterweight bout at 170 pounds. We have Max Griffin versus Elizeu Zaleski. Both of these fighters have also fought in the UFC before. Max Griffin coming out of California, being 31 years old, to Zaleski's 30 years old. The height advantage is going to go to Griffin, 6 foot, to the 5'11 Zaleski. And the reach advantage also going to Griffin by 3 inches, 76 to the 73 of Zaleski. With Max Griffin, He's definitely more of a striker. Likes to sprawl and brawl, keeps fights standing. He's live by the sword, die by the sword type of a fighter. If he can't get you out of there, he will gas trying to throw very muscular, strong shots. Not that he doesn't have the power. It's just that if you know what you're doing in there, you're going to take the shots for the first round and slowly turn the pressure on and keep turning it up and grind them out. And Zaleski is exactly that style of fighter. I think that this is a style mixed fight. And it's a wrestler to a striker with good takedown defense. But I think Zaleski's wrestling and mixture of MMA is definitely able to. Zaleski coming in with a 17-5 record, beating his debut against Liam Good, who was on all sorts of steroids. That was a split decision, and I had Good all over everything. And I remember, and he ended up just grinding through that bout, eating big shots and adjusting very, very well. I really, really liked what Zaleski's been doing in his career. He's already had 4 fights in the UFC, and he's been on a 3-fight winning streak for a reason. His only loss is a split decision to Dalby, and Dalby tends to do that to people. I got Zaleski decision. If not, I'm thinking maybe a TKO round 3, just because I think Griffin's gas tank and his one-dimensionalness is only a matter of time till he starts losing more and more fights. This is going to be a barn burner, though. I feel like Griffin's going to be alive in that first round, and if Zaleski gets out of that first round, more and more the fight goes his way. Decision, Zaleski, what do you think goes on in this one?
You said it all. I think you said it all. I think Zaleski KO round 3 purely because the gas tank fade on Griffin. And I don't think Griffin has seen the caliber that Zaleski is. He's a guy that's putting every piece of the game together as far as I'm concerned. And he has a really good defense. He eats good shots. I'm not really worried about him too much in this fight. And we're fighting in Brazil. We're fighting in his country. So I already think he's a good fighter. Now he could be a good fighter with a little bit of juice. Give me that. Give me that.
Woo! I'm
going to put Zaleski on a lot of cards on the DraftKings.
I'm thinking that as well. I might move him up to a finish eventually. Moving on to the next fight, we have Antonio Carlos Cara de Zapato versus Jack Marshman. Marshman's nickname being the Hammer. So this is a really interesting stylistic fight. Carlos Jr. being the hometown boy at 27 years old to the Marshman's also 27. The height advantage is going to go for Cara de Zapato with an inch at 6'1", to Marshman 6 foot, and the reach is going to go to Cara de Zapato 79 inches to 73. That is a 6-inch reach advantage for Shoeface. We know what we're
getting. Gotta get it in. Gotta get it in.
We know what we're getting with Shoeface. A Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu master has actually faltered only 2 times in the UFC because he tried to stay standing with Dan Kelly. Dan Kelly came in on that fight and really showed how to cook a fighter. Shoeface has come off of a 3-fight winning streak.
And the nation made money on that fight because we got Dan Kelly
on all that. As of late, Shoeface has had a 3-fight winning streak, and they've been against decent competition. Vettori, who is also a young up-and-comer who's fighting out of black. Nope, he beat Vettori in a decision. And then, as of late, he beat Eric Spicely, who was supposed to be submission guy as of 4 months ago. And then, prior to those 2, he also beat Leonardo Gutierrez, who I don't even know if he's in the UFC anymore. So either way, Marshman is 22-6. He's had a few bouts in the UFC. Last win over Ryan James. He came into the UFC with a loss to Thiago Santos in a finish. Prior to that, he had ended up beating Magnus Siedenblad, who's also out of the UFC, in a TKO. I think there was a ton of hype because Marshman's been traditionally a kickboxer who has had a long career in kickboxing prior to coming over to the UFC. People are saying that he's the new next coming. He's Darren Till-esque. His takedown defense isn't as there as most people think. Marshman has been put on the ground by multiple fighters. Seed, Bala, and I feel like Janes even tended to get him there a little bit. But I don't think Janes is that caliber of a fighter as well. Thiago Santos showed us that he can still get picked apart with power. Marshman does gas, and it's because even though he has okay takedown defense, Marshman only has takedown defense for the first round and a half. If somebody keeps pressure takedowns on Marshman, he folds just because it's not his style of fight. Shoeface, the only unfortunate thing is with his jiu-jitsu, he doesn't have that pressure takedown that a lot of wrestlers do. He has more of a jiu-jitsu, I'll pull guard on you, which can be very dangerous because you can get hammer-fisted. There's just...
By a guy called the Hammer?
Yeah, exactly. All sorts of stuff can happen.
Did you just say
jinx
something?
it?
Yeah.
Well, it's something to watch out for if you're definitely listening. Maybe you make a bet the other way. I do think that people are having it very lopsided for Junior, and I think that this is more of a coin flip of a fight. I think this can go to a decision, and I got Junior in it. But I think Marshman's a live dog. I could see myself putting Marshman on a couple because the finish is there. On the ground, Junior has a finish. This is a scary fight. I'm definitely mixed. I'll be flipping and flopping until the week's over. But right now, I got Junior decision. It's not as far of a fight as people are thinking. What do you feel like goes on in this fight?
I think it is as far as a fight as people are thinking. I think I call this the Brazil pacifier. This is what they give to Brazil to appease any lost Brazilian fighters have had tonight. They let their hometown hero pull up a submission, the style they like to see. So they give him a shill like Marshman. They throw him in there. I think Marshman gets eaten alive. I think submission round 1 or 2. Carlos could be the most expensive fighter on DraftKings this week.
Wow. Bold statements. Bold statements. We'll definitely...
I won't put them everywhere. I see everything. Sorry, I took a bite. I didn't plan on talking right then. I see everything you're talking about and see that Marshman could be a live dog. I probably will have Marshman on 1 or 2 cards, and I'll put Carlos on like 5 to 6.
I'm okay with that. Because I still also have Junior. I just, if people, Evil Twin specifically, is all over that, and I'm like, dude, I wouldn't be so confident just because Junior's let us down. Just due to the fact of a grinding fight. But he has fixed that as of late. So, moving on to the next fight, we have a welterweight bout in Nico Price versus Vicente Luque. Nico Price being 10-0 to Vicente Luque's 11-6. Luque had a good little winning streak together coming off of the show. Last loss being to Leon Edwards. Nico Price, I believe, had a fight that he lost to Morono, but it was popped on steroids or something 6 months ago.
Nico Price from Leslie Smith underdog pick fame.
Also beating, as of late, Alan Jouban. If you also were on that, you made money. I think he was like a minus 200 somewhere in that range. But Nico Price, sneaky up and comer. This is actually a very interesting fight for me. I feel like this is my fight of the night. This is what I
agree with you.
Interesting fight, because if you've been listening to us at all, Vicente Luque is somebody to watch out for. The only thing that I really don't like as of late of Vicente is we saw his worst showing as of late, and it was a bad fucking showing. He was horribly gassed and out of shape. It wasn't that short a notice of a fight, but I got to watch out for Luque at weigh-ins to see what he ends up looking like. Price has been the more consistent fighter as of late, so it's going to sway me a little bit more there. Nico Price coming in out of Florida. Price also being the taller fighter at 6 foot to Luque's 5'10". The reach is the same though, with a 76-inch reach. Luque coming out of Black House, which I think is now Combat Club, which Usman and all of those monsters, all of them are coming. But it's not Black Zillions anymore. I mean, sorry, not Black House. Black Zillions, it's now I think Combat Club and the Armory is what they both split into. So
correct.
I think Luque is with Usman and all those guys. Again, hopefully, if Luque comes in shape, this is going to be a hell of a dogfight. Nico Price always comes to play. Nico Price's ground game is where he thrives, but Luque is also a monster on the ground. The striking, though, the advantage I give to Luque if his gas tank's there. Luque has a much crisper, more powerful, more beat you in a sprint. He gets his shots out of the pocket faster and cleaner and tends to cover better with a gas tank. If Luque does not have this gas tank, Nico Price is the type of fighter to drag it into the third round with more of a just, I'll eat your shots and keep coming and eventually I'll get you on the ground and submit you. Luque being nasty on the ground himself, that submission option might not be there. So I think this is battling both ways. Nico Price is walking uphill both ways on this one. This is a tough fight. I think this is a 50-50 coin flip of a fight. I could see either fighter getting it, but I had Price as of this morning, and I'm switching it to Luque. I am giving the striking just the ever so more, and I think the submission and ground game neutralizes itself, so that's where the advantage goes. Giving Luque decision. If not, I can see myself even saying TKO round 1 if Luque is in shape. What do you think goes on in this one?
I had Luque, and now I have Price.
Hey, this is a 50-50 fight.
I flip back. I really think the odds makers that are the odds that I'm looking at right now are kind of correct here. I really like Vincent Luque. He's one of my favorite fighters. I think he was found out by Leon Edwards in his last fight. He looked tired. He looked pale. He looked drab.
Yep.
Maybe he was sick. Maybe he was fighting off something. Maybe he shouldn't have followed through with the fight. I love Usman so much, and I think Vincente Luque is fighting with Usman. He's got to be warming up with him every day, training with him, everything. It makes me super high on him. But when I look back at Vincent Luque's career and what he's done and who he's beat, his best win is against Remember the Name Muhammad, and I really like Bilal, but Nico Price, he's on a mad tear right now. I have to think he has all the momentum on his side. The reason this fight's so interesting is both guys are contenders. Both guys are guys that we're going to watch in the next 4 years here battle for this belt at the 170 division. The 172 is becoming the most dangerous division in the UFC.
Fight. Dog fight.
I always thought it was the 155, but it is really the 170, then the men's 155, then the women's 115. I used to not even put the men's 170 on
They
there.
constantly move. It all depends on the talent, but it is not an easy weight class at all for
right now. I did have Price KO round, or I had Luque, and then I had Price KO round 3, but I'm moving up to Price KO round 2, and for some reason I feel like that last fight with Luque, and it's almost the most dangerous find out in fighting, and I think Cowboy suffers from it, Matt Brown suffers from it, and I think Vincent Luque suffers from it, soft body. And I think that's why he lost the last fight, and Nico Price will totally he will use that to exploit that.
He's a smart fighter, definitely.
He's a smart fighter, and he also takes a ton of body shots, ton of great punches. He has a good stand-up game. They both have an okay ground, which I think is going to neutralize each other, and that they don't even go there. I think this is going to be one hell of a fight. I got Price KO round 2. I might put both fighters on separate cards.
I agree with that.
And not
100%.
to cover my bases, but I will have Nico Price on more. And it's funny because I thought Luque was going to be our Leslie Smith underdog pick. I really thought but I can't. The last fight was so scary. It was such a different guy. He looked like he had the flu.
Yeah, he had never looked that bad. So this is going to be a weigh-ins on me because, again, it's just that his last showing was really, really, really bad.
But
he has everything he
that
needs
they're showing
to win
right
this
now
fight.
Should not be as far apart. Nico Price is such a heavy favorite.
That's what I don't agree with. 100%.
I could so sway just by cost.
This is a coin flip. The wager gauger could be in play here, depending on Luca's price, because that's too big of a gap. This is way closer of a fight than people think. That last showing, your last fight, and definitely Luca is not that.
Oh my goodness!
We're moving on to the main card. I'm assuming.
Moving on the main card. And to one of our favorite fighters here at Lesbo and The Bean.
I think two of our favorite fighters. We have John Lineker at bantamweight versus Marlon Chito Vera. One of our other. We have three Leslie Smith
underdog picks.
How many? 3 or 4? 3 or 4 we've already had on this card that we've blatantly picked and they've cashed for us at plus money.
Yeah. And some of them are fighting each other.
Yeah, it's so true, and this is a sneaky good card. So this is a hell of a fun fight. This is a fan favorite. Do I even need to explain either of these guys' stats? We got the Gnome versus the Cheeto Bandit. Coming in, Chito Vera with a 12-3 record off of the Latin America show, having some heavy-duty wins as of late on a 3-fight winning streak. Last loss to Davey Grant in a decision, but since then beating Gao Nguyen, then Brad Pickett in a TKO in a fight he was losing, then beating Kelleher in a submission armbar 2 months ago. We picked Vera twice against Brad Pickett, and we pick him against Kelleher and he cashed us both on that with Vera. In this fight, he's fighting John Lineker, who's coming in on a 29-8 record, coming off of a loss against TJ Dillashaw in a unanimous decision that I believe went 5 rounds. Then prior to that, Lineker beat John Dodson, and prior to that, Michael McDonald in a TKO. We know what we're getting with John Lineker. This is a troll that moves forward and throws body and head shots intermittently. He doesn't stick to just one, which is sneaky. A lot of people think that John Lineker is a headhunter and he just swings for the head, and it's very not true. Look at John Lineker's style. He'll throw one body, one to the head, and he'll mix it back and forth, and that's what opens up his knockout shots, is because people eventually stop hitting those shots. Vera's a little soft in the body. I really like John Lineker's lead body shot to an overhand right. He throws it well. We know that he can take any kick, or he can have a fire hydrant hit him, and John Lineker will not go down. He's eaten some of the biggest shots I've ever seen in my life. I don't think Chito Vera has the power to put him down any day of the week. I mean, John Lineker can be asleep in bed. Vera can come over, kick him in the face, and Lineker will wake up, brush his teeth, and be like, "What? You hit me?" Like, Lineker is unbelievable in that sense. Eventually that's going to go, but I don't think Vera's going to get him there. With the ground game, we know what John Lineker brings as well. Black belt, both of these gentlemen being black belts. But Lineker has that more just stifling style, and he's just a little fire hydrant of limbs. Again, Vera, his only shot to me is the submission ability, and I don't think that happens with the style of Lineker. I think that, unfortunately for Vera, this is one of the few times I'm going to have to bet against him. I've been on the Vera wagon, but a fight's a fight, and I think Lineker is overmatching him with a pace, power, and just overall skill, and all the way around. How do you feel this one goes down?
I got to stay with my boy Cheeto on this.
Woo! Woo!
John Lineker does come forward. He doesn't just headhunt. He does do body shots. But that being said, he has minimal head movement, minimal body movement, minimal anything movement. Cheeto catch you with a kick. Cheeto might catch you with a kick. John might not go down, but Cheeto doesn't need him to go down. He just needs them to be that much slower. I'm going to make a bold prediction here.
Woo.
Lineker's been choked out before, and he's going to get choked out again in Brazil by Chito Vera. And what a perfect kid to build a Brazilian fan base. And it's Chito. He's easy to love. He's great on the mic. I hope he does a really smart call out on his next fight. You know what? I hope Chito wins this, and I hope he calls out DJ. And if he calls out DJ after this fight, he can get that fight. Because who else? Who else is DJ? DJ just wants to stay at one... Oh, it's 135.
Yep.
Darn it, Maul. It's just because didn't Lineker fight DJ a little bit ago?
Yeah, and that's one thing that we used to have to always say with Lineker is, hey, he might not show up. He might miss weight. I do think that he's had a scare, though, at 35. Even though he's already moved up in weight, I do think he's been, close.
I just really like Cheeto. I like how much height he's going to have on this.
Yeah.
Or I think we could see that style of forward where we're facing each other and I come up and I think it's El Kakui does it. Is it a guillotine or?
Oh no, a snap down.
Yeah, where I come across I almost push you down. So now and then I take you into a choke.
Yeah, you can use it by either snapping it down initially. It's a snap down, and then you can use it into a darce or all sorts of stuff.
I could even see that going, but I see Vera Cheeto getting it, and I could even see it happening in round 2. Sneaky, quick, and what just happened? Wow. It looked like he just ate a punch, and now he got armbarred. I'm going to have
huge underdog.
Marlon Vieira. I know it's enormous. It's his biggest fight. Both young guys. This could be the fight of the night.
This could be the fight of the night because Chito Vera is a dog. He's not going to give up at any time. He never has in any of his fights. So that's why we really like him. I just love
that kid. I'm going to stay with him. I'm going with heart on this one, you guys. I'm going to put Cheeto on some things. But a smart play is it's going to take Cheeto a little bit to do that any way you cut it. So whether you believe me or not, and I think Lineker is going to be well over 9, probably 9-3, 9-4.
On
and
DK, yeah.
He does throw a lot of punches, but he doesn't throw a lot like KK or like DJ. He doesn't throw a lot like that. He doesn't rabbit punch. I don't think he's going to finish Cheeto.
With the throwing a lot, though, I do think Cheeto does get rocked in a lot of his fights, and
I agree with you there.
And that's where it's bad with this type of power that Lineker has, because it's going to really over-exaggerate that. With that fight, though,
I don't think Lineker has that same power at 135 that we saw at 125.
We'll see. The fight, though, if you go with Chito and Lesbo here, you're getting plus 380 for Chito Vera. You're making bank. You're cashing big money. I got Lineker, who's a minus 405, and I feel like it shouldn't be that high. It should be more like a 2-1 favorite, but I do think Lineker, for me, solid.
Chito.
This is a mixed up night. We're going back and forth. Back and forth. Moving on to the next fight, we have Thiago Santos versus Jack Hermansson. This is two young veterans in the sport now. Hermansson coming in with a 16-3 record, fighting out of Norway. His loss as of late being a triangle choke to Cesar Ferreira, but since then has come off of a 2-fight winning streak to Brad Scott, and also beating, who was it, Nicholson as well, Alec Nicholson. Then we have Thiago Santos, 33 years old, to the 29, Jack Hermansson. Santos coming in off a 2-fight winning streak as well, being 15-5. His last 2 losses in the UFC, Eric Spicely, when he was like a 5-1 favorite, Thiago Santos. Prior to that, Gegard Mousasi due to TKO, which is understandable. Thiago Santos, big prospect. If you can call a prospect at 33, I feel like we have a finished product in Santos. Also notorious for having one of the worst tattoos in the UFC. Can you think of it off the top of your head?
Is it a picture of a golden retriever? Oh, wait, that's Cowboy. Just
I believe it's a hammer in the middle of his chest. That is like in the middle of between of his pecs. He didn't used to have that. That's a recent addition. And
a bad addition.
I would agree 100% with that.
He's his baby Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, that's kind of what I see it as well. But we have Santos also being the shorter fighter at 6 foot. The reach advantage, though, going to Santos with an inch reach advantage. So, interesting. Santos has got a little bit of length in those arms. Right now, the favorite is Hermansson, and I think that the bettors are coming in on him due to the fact that he's a more well-rounded fighter. As we're saying with the 33-year-old Santos, we know that he's a Muay Thai striker with okay takedown defense, not the best.
Well, Santos is a heavy favorite on Tapology. Heavy favorite, 72% to 28%. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, whoa, I had it backwards. I was looking at something else.
Yeah,
Sorry. So Santos is being a heavy favorite. Whoa, what am I looking at? Why am I backwards? Okay, so Hermansson is the underdog on tap right now. Santos being the favorite. Everyone thinks it's going to be that kickboxing, grappling. He just has a lot of power, Thiago Santos. Ton of power in his kicks. He can hit those left kicks through the body and the head. In the third round, the thing is with Santos, he gasses heavily. Every single one of his fights, even if he's winning, it's a fight that he definitely is breathing hard by the end of it. And Hermansson, to me, is a better all-around fighter. Hermansson, on the feet as of late, has looked very elusive, even though his competition hasn't been the highest caliber. Hermansson, all the way around, if it goes to the ground, he can submit him where Santos isn't going to submit. And if anything, if it goes to the ground, that's where Santos is most in danger of being finished, I think. I think striking, this is going to turn into a kickboxing match. The flash knockout, to me, comes to Santos more. The actual favorite on the betting lines right now is minus 140 for Hermansson. So most of Tapology has Santos, but everybody else on the betting lines is coming in Hermansson. Also a very split decision fight. I talked myself into Hermansson. I think Hermansson is a better all-around fighter. I know where we're getting with Santos. A lot of power with okay takedown defense. I think that gets exploited. I like Hermansson's takedowns. Well-around, all the way around game. Decision, Hermansson. This could be a bad call by me. What do you think will happen?
I have Hermansson KO round 1. Ooh. I think Thiago Santos has a glass chin, and the last 2 wins to me were not impressive at all. So as far as I'm concerned, his last real win was Nate Marquardt about a year and a half ago. And Nate Marquardt, is Nate Marquardt in the UFC anymore?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so he's not.
Thiago Santos is someone they keep around for the fans of Brazil to put asses in the seat. I think Hermansson's a guy that's on the way up. I like the nickname The Joker. I'm looking forward to watching him fight. I like the part of the world he's from right now as far as fighting's concerned. I think they're sending out a lot of beasts. I see him clipping that Cheon and knocking Thiago out. I will have Jack Hermanson on a whole bunch of my DraftKings cards.
Ooh. So, I think I go submission just because I think that I'm going to switch it from decision. I got Hermanson submission round 2 or 3 because I think he clips him, but then he jumps on his back and submits him, and that's where you're going to finish Santos. Interesting. Unfortunately, not an underdog right now on the line.
I think it's crazy. I thought that was gonna be our Leslie Smith.
That's what I thought as well because of Tap, and Tap's usually on it, but interesting. And yeah, I see Hermanson having more avenues there, and so that's the educated guess right now. Moving on to the next fight, we have a lightweight bout at 155 pounds. Jim Miller versus Francisco Trinaldo. Jim Miller coming off of a 2-fight losing streak, being 28-10. The 34-year-old fighter is fighting the 39-year-old lightweight Francisco Trinaldo, coming off a 1-fight losing streak to Kevin Lee. Prior to that, Trinaldo had a 7-8 fight winning streak with ton of knockouts. We know what we're getting with Trinaldo at 39. We know what we're getting with Jim Miller at 34. Jim Miller is a longtime veteran. Trinaldo's up there as well. Miller, though, as of late, has had a really rough showing. You've seen the miles that he's put in there because he's been putting him in for a long time, and I think there's a car going over 2,000. It's just he's holding on every other fight, and as of late he hasn't even been holding on that much. That decision to Poirier was a dogfight. To Pettis was also a dogfight. Miller always gets in these brutal fights. Trinaldo has a stifling jiu-jitsu game. He's not going to be submitting you, but what everybody says with Francisco Trinaldo is that dude is so incredibly strong. He hits like a bag of bricks. He looks like a chimp. I don't mean that racistly. I mean he literally looks like a chimp. And he will rip your face. Like, I feel like if it was allowed, he would grab your mouth open and rip your jaw off of your mouth. That's the type of fighter he looks like to me in all the best ways. I think actually Trinaldo gets a TKO round 1. Massive power. Jim Miller likes to keep it standing. I think as the fight goes on, Jim Miller's more likely to win in a decision, if not submission, later in the rounds. But as I'm saying, I don't like what I've been seeing of Jim Miller as of late. I think he's a fade all day. I have Trinaldo, even though he should be fading, but we're in Brazil.
What are these betting lines right now on Trinaldo Miller?
Trinaldo also being out of Brazil, though, that juice may be flowing.
The juice is loose.
So this is a fighter who knows how to fight on the juice. Trinaldo being the minus 165 favorite to the plus 145 Jim Miller.
These betting guys are smart this week.
I know, because I would have had Santos. I would have thought Santos was the underdog here. I would have really thought that.
I didn't. I thought Santos would be the heavy favorite.
Interesting.
He is the favorite, isn't he?
Yeah, no, minus 165 for Santos. He's the favorite.
Yeah. So,
but not heavy. Almost 2-1 though. Almost 2-1 to Jim Miller. Jim Miller hasn't been that big of an underdog.
Santos. Who's the favorite? Santos or Hermanson?
Hermanson is also the favorite.
Yeah, I would have thought Santos would have been favorited and Hermanson would have been the underdog.
Oh, Trinaldo is the other guy I'm thinking of. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Trinaldo is the favorite at minus 165 as well.
Okay. Well, I know they're too smart this week. I think Trinaldo ground and pound finish round 2. I think he's too strong and too much. And Jim Miller really hasn't had a decisive win in years. Everything goes to split with Jim Miller. I think he's a grinding guy. I think he always puts in for an exciting fight. But Jim Miller also gets very hurt in fights, and you can't have a big beast like Trinaldo on top of you as quick as he's going to be with those heavy elbows, heavy hammer fists, heavy ground and pound. Jim Miller's going to get hurt, and if he doesn't finish the fight, Trinaldo, Jim Miller's going to be bloody enough that if it goes to decision, we in hometown. I think Trinaldo's a safe bet to put all over your cards, and I see a ground and pound finish in round 2, so if you see him finish in round 1, I Trinaldo.
I got Trinaldo everywhere, all day, every day. Yeah, that's one of those guys that doesn't matter what his price is, he's going to be on a lot of my cards. It's more the fade on Jim Miller, unfortunately, but again, we've watched those miles accumulate for Jim Miller, and they haven't been pretty miles.
But that also, the fact that this is the third time I'm saying it, this could potentially be the fight of the night.
Again, this is a sneaky card.
I agree with you.
Sneaky card. There's definitely still some great matchups moving on. Moving on to the next fight, we have a bantamweight bout, 135 pounds. Rob Font versus Pedro Munoz. Rob Font having 3 fights in the UFC with a 14-2 record. His only loss in the UFC being to John Lineker in a decision. Pedro Munoz only having his debut in the UFC. I believe he popped earlier in his career, but he lost a split decision to Jimmy Rivera. He's a 14-2 fighter. Then he's come off of a 3-fight winning streak since then, beating people like Russell Doan, Justin Scoggins, and Stasiak as of late. Rob Font beating Matt Schnell and Douglas DeAndrade via submission 3 months ago. Both of these fighters fought Pedro 4 months ago, so not too long ago. Font being the younger fighter at 30 years old to the 31 Black House Pedro Munoz. Font also is going to have a 6-inch reach advantage to Pedro Munoz. Munoz having a 65-inch reach to 71.5 inches for Rob Font. Rob Font only being an inch taller than Pedro Munoz. So I think there's a bit of both worlds where Pedro Munoz might have a little bit lacking and Font might have a little bit extra length. So it makes that discrepancy so big. Font likes to come in and strike. He has a diverse ground game, but has been able to keep people on the end of his punches. The knockout he has over Schnell, I don't think is that telling because Schnell's defense isn't the best. The fight that really told me a lot for Font was that Lineker fight. I actually had Font in that because I really liked what Font was doing prior to that, getting finishes over Joey Gomez and also over George Roop. Rob Font really knows how to put you at the end of his punch and maximize the amount of power on his punches. And if there's something to be said in his fight is that he can get worn on by a good wrestler and he can get slowed down because he does have flashy techniques. He is a bit skinny and gangly for the division, where that Pedro Munoz tends to have a little bit more muscle. I think that Font is still at 30. He just doesn't pack a lot of muscle on there. Pedro Munoz is coming in with a heavy wrestling game. He's coming out of Black House. Good all the way around, good power, good gas tank, diverse in striking. Though I am going to give the striking advantage to Font, I do think that the pace really benefits Munoz. This is a really back and forth fight. I flipped a coin multiple times today on this fight. I had Font in the morning. I have Munoz now. Decision. I think that Munoz can get 2-3 takedowns and ride him out. Font can get stuck on his back. He's not super dangerous off the ground, and I think that that's where he can get exploited. But if this stays up, Font can finish this fight. And I think the finish is there for Font more than the finish would be there for Munoz, but I do think the grind gets him. I got Munoz in this, and I think he might be a bit of an underdog. How do you feel this one goes down?
I have Font decision on this right now. It's not a fight I'm excited about either way. I just don't see it being a high-scoring fight.
Yeah, I agree.
I also think to the uneducated fan, it might be the most boring fight of the night. I think there could be a lot of really small reversals or weight changes that we don't even notice on the camera with the views that we have, that if it ends up on the ground at all, I do think Font has enough defensively to not get submitted. That being said, I think Munoz is good enough to not be submitted himself, so that both fighters are going to be standing fighting, which is not either of their strong suits. Font is better on the end of his punches, like you said, which really swayed me to that. I think it's going to be forced for both fighters to stand up and blow, and the only way we're really going to see it go to some sort of submission is going to be if a guy gets hurt, which I can only see Font hurting Munoz a little bit and then having such a long reach and such a long body that he can catch him in some sneaky choke or armbar or something of that nature. So the only finish I can see really is for Font. But I'm probably going to stay away from this fight.
I would agree with that. Either way, I don't think that this is going to be a high producer. I could see Font on a couple just because if there was value on DK, it would be for that, where we're both saying Munoz, if he finishes, it's going to be a decision. Yeah. So I think that's the better play, is just kind of play Munoz in a decision, and if there's a play on DK, probably be then Munoz. But I think
it's coin flip Munoz all day. I have Font decision. I wouldn't put Munoz anywhere in my eyes.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think that that's going to be a close fight. There's other way to make money. Moving on to the co-main event.
Which should be the main event of the night.
Is this a people's main event?
This is the Lesbo and The Bean main event of the night.
In the co-main event, we have Demian Maia at 170 pounds versus Colby Covington. These welterweights are coming with a 12-1 record for Covington, only losing to Warley Alves in a submission a year ago, coming off of a 4-fight winning streak, beating Max Griffin, who's on the earlier card, also Brian Barberina, who's a notorious grinder, and Young Hyun Kim in a decision as of late. Demian Maia being 25-7, a longtime veteran in the UFC. He's been a former title contender at 185 pounds. He's now at the 170 division. I believe Demian Maia even fought like at 205 at a point in time. A specialist at its finest. You see in Demian Maia's ground game. If you've been following us here at Latby, you know what you're getting with Demian Maia. He immediately goes for the takedown and tries to go for that submission, puts 3 points of contact. If you haven't seen BJJ Scout, watch it. It'll show you exactly what the game plan for Demian Maia is. And Maia coming off of a 5-round decision in one of the worst fights of the year, supposedly against Tyron T. Wood as of 2 months ago. Not a lot of damage was accumulated on Maia, so I don't expect that turnaround that Cerrone just had be as big of a deal for Maia here, because there was a really lot of nothing that went on that entire fight. But if there's a game plan to be had against Demian Maia, Tyron Woodley just showed it. Stay away from the ground. Pick him apart. Colby Covington is smart enough. He's a part of that American top team. Jorge Masvidal, he's a guy who's been taking Jorge over to the Pacific Northwest and wrestling with him. We know that American wrestling, which tends to be Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in our eyes, tends to work. But the gap in ability, Colby Covington to Demian Maia, is vast. And the experience that Demian Maia brings to the table is like nothing that Colby Covington has seen. Even though Colby Covington is on a good win streak against good fighters, not one of them has been Demian Maia caliber. And that really does frighten me a bit. But I think the ace in the hole is, again, Colby Covington's right-hand man right now is Gamebred himself. And Gamebred has been saying it for a while. Colby picks it up. He's listening. I really don't like Colby's change in his last trying to be flashier and talking a big game and being this poet and like...
I think he's been a tool. I've even retweeted #tool for
I
some
agree.
of the stuff he said, because I think he's an asshole on Twitter.
I think he is a bit of a douchebag, and he wasn't because he used to have that wrestling mindset, but I feel like Colby has realized because of Jorge, like, hey...
Because of Conor.
Right. That if you talk shit, good or bad, you're making more money, and unfortunately for him, it's bad shit talk, and hopefully his fighting could just do the talking, but apparently he needs to make it with his mouth as well. With that, Colby Covington would murder me any day of the week. Hardcore wrestler, and with Jorge Masvidal, the sneaky thing that could happen with Demian Maia is you might not get submitted Colby Covington, but guess what? You're not going to win a decision because you're going to have a backpack on the entire time. But that ace in the hole with Masvidal, I think that they come with a game plan of how to beat Demian Maia, and I have Colby Covington winning a split controversial in Brazil decision. I think he has a takedown ability defense to keep it standing, and he can pick Maia apart just enough that even the refs won't give it to him. I think this is going to get boos all day long. I think this is a very low-scoring fight, but I do think Covington runs away with a decision. I could, though, on DK, if Maia isn't too expensive, I would put him on a couple cards. But right now, my flat-out pick is Colby Covington decision.
Wow. I have Maia submission round 1.
Yeah.
I don't think Colby's as good. If Colby were to fight Gamebred tomorrow, I got Gamebred winning that fight. I don't think Colby's skills are anywhere near as good as Jorge's. So I just see the best Colby has to offer is the exact same fight we just saw Jorge fight, and that's just wearing Maia as a book bag. I don't think Colby's nearly as good as T. Woods as far as going to be able to keep the distance and cut off Maia. The other thing, I don't think Colby's as strong as T. Woods. I don't think he has the wrestling background like T. Woods or the defense. So I got to give this to Maia all day. I think this is a pinted up fight for Maia. A boa constrictor got to eat, and it's been a while.
Ooh.
So I think, he didn't get to finish Jorge. He rode on his back for a whole fight, and then he went in against a 5-round fight against
the champ
on short notice, but still had the experience of that fight. I just don't put Colby anywhere near the caliber of those last 2 fighters. And like you were saying before, Demian Maia's huge. I think he's bigger and stronger than anyone could possibly think. I just see him getting finished, and I think it's a bummer. I think he talked himself, and I think he wrote a check that his ass couldn't cash.
Jumped the shark.
Yeah, he should have gone. There's a lot more interesting fights for him.
But I think with Colby Covington in his career, though, a loss to Demian Maia on the ground is kind of like, oh yeah, we expected that. So all he only gains from this fight. Colby doesn't lose. If he wins,
I agree.
If he wins, it's even better for his career. But I don't think that a loss to Demian Maia on the ground. But I think that, again, I'm liking my underdog all of a sudden. I think Colby.
I see a Maia finish, and I see a Maia retirement.
In
Brazil.
That's
the only reason
call.
This fight is here. The only reason this fight's happening is so Maia can retire in Brazil, is my prediction.
I say the retirement still happens, but I say Colby wins his fight. Woo!
Colby's not going to be, to me, the way UFC, all these fighters go in and Colby's the guy to beat Maia. Colby.
Change my mind.
Colby's the guy to beat Maia.
Yes, I see uppercuts, knees, and I see him using double collar ties to completely stop Maia's takedown. Exactly what T Wood was doing. I think that's exactly what you get. And I'm even thinking the finish is going to come for Colby now, just because Colby's a huge 170.
Warley Alves versus Maia. Who wins?
Maia, but Warley has a worse gas tank. By far. But
Jorge Masvidal versus Colby Covington. Who wins?
Ooh, I got Masvidal on that too.
T Woods versus Colby Covington. Who wins?
T Wood.
Carlos Condit versus Colby Covington. Who wins?
Colby Covington.
Okay. I agree with that one.
Okay.
I agree with that one.
Yeah.
I agree. I think Colby Covington can beat Matt Brown.
Yep.
And I think actually a better fight would have been Colby Covington, Gunnar Nelson. That would have been a better fight for my boy Colby.
Yeah. This is a bigger step up in competition.
And I like Colby as much as I think he's a chode on Twitter, and I just think he's looking to try to be that heel, but I almost think he owns it in that troll kind of way where it kind of is making me like him more just as a personality. I got to go with Maia. Submission round 1. Maybe round 2. But I think them legs get tired from wearing that book bag the whole night.
Moving on to the main event.
But if you listen to the Bean on this card, you got money to be made.
That would be money to be made.
A lot of underdogs.
I feel like I do have a bunch of underdogs. That's scary.
That's usually mine.
Yeah. Who's the sharp on the podcast?
I know.
Yeah, I agree. There is some. I don't think we have a Leslie dog.
No. Every time I think it's about to be one, we were like, nope, we disagree.
But this is a thing that we've said before. If one doesn't come up,
there isn't one, there isn't one. But it doesn't mean there won't be one by weigh-ins, and there could be one for a bonus episode. We have no idea what's going to happen.
Agreed. And stick on our Twitter. If not, remember to subscribe on all of those.
Yeah, go lesboandthebean.com, and you can find your feed and like it and find all that stuff right there. There's a big yellow button that says, click here.
And then remember to subscribe whatever platform it is so you can be up to date. On the main event, we have...
Main event of the night!
185-pound bout at middleweight. Lyoto Dragon Machida versus Derek Brunson. Machida coming in with a 20-7 record, being a former light heavyweight belt. A perennial contender, coming in with that karate style against Derek Brunson, who is 17-5, coming off of a win as of late to Daniel Kelly. Prior to that, losing to Anderson Silva in a decision, which was a robbery, absolute robbery. And then prior to that, losing a TKO to Whitaker and head kicks, where he had Whitaker all sorts of hurt. The thing that scares me with Brunson in any one of his fights is he runs face forward like he's on roller skates. All of a sudden, you pictured him like... Oh, because we've talked about it.
A Scooby-Doo in a cartoon.
Yeah, he's running, punching. And with a veteran...
You know what Colby Covington is? If we had another name for something that maybe not a Leslie Smith underdog pick, but I think a new name for it, what Colby Covington would be on this night would be a live wire. He's a live wire.
Yeah, he has a real
wire.
shot. He has a real shot.
He's going to be the guy that makes you first place.
Right.
If you want to take home all the dollars, it's a Colby Covington win and you having him on your card. So that's a live wire.
Be on it, people.
Okay, back to the Brunson.
Machida. Machida being 38 years old to Brunson's 33. Machida also having a 4-inch reach disadvantage to the 78 for Brunson, 74 for the Black House fighter in Machida. Brunson's coming out of Jackson Winklejohn as well. To me, this is a coin flip of a fight. I definitely have been more of the Brunson bandwagoner, and at 39 years old with Machida, he hasn't had his best days as of late, coming off of a 2-fight losing streak to Rockhold and Yoel Romero, TKO. His last win, Machida's last win, is the CB Dalloway, where he was hurt and threw a last shot
effort.
To keep, and he knocked out CB. Prior to that, he lost a decision to Weidman. I mean, Machida's fighting the top echelon of the 185-pound division, so these losses aren't really that bad, and he hasn't been completely blown out of the water in any one of these. The Romero was pretty one-sided of a bout, but I think Machida's fading. This is all due to weigh-ins, where I could be swayed to Machida, because Machida is a counter fighter who does sit on his punches well and has sneaky rhythms where he comes in and out. Derek Brunson has sneaky rhythms, but it's forward, fast, chin up. For a Machida type of fighter, that's very, very scary, and power's the last thing to go. Machida can always land that knockout shot. Brunson he doesn't have an amazing chin. He's been finished before. I like Derek Brunson in this. I think that just the wear and tear on Machida's illustrious long career at the top division is really worn on him more. Brunson's on his way up. Brunson has just a bit more left in the gas tank. He can eat a few of those hard shots and keep going even with bad form, where Machida I don't think has that. I think a random punch, even if it's shitty from Brunson, which it probably will be shitty, will still have enough to knock him out just because it's just a faded fight. I think that this is for the local people and they're expecting Machida to win, but I don't know if it happens. I got Brunson TKO round 2, but this is a really 50-50.
Who's the favorites on this?
This is a 50-50 fight for me. And the favorite right now on the betting lines is Derek Brunson minus 175 to Lyoto Machida's plus 155.
Gosh, tight nights tonight.
I know. So I got the favorite here with Brunson.
I got the favorite as well. KO round 1. I actually, looking back through Brunson's fights, his last 5 fights, he's knocked out every single guy. Did he win all 5 fights? No. But Robert Whittaker was knocked out before the ice hit the floor of the rink and Derek Brunson started slipping everywhere. Right. Robert Whittaker was knocked out on his feet at one point in that fight. And Anderson Silva was so badly hurt in that fight.
Yeah, there was no way Silva won 2 of those
No way at all. It was so. I got Brunson KO round 1. I think we could see something that we've never seen before.
Some weird finish.
I think we could see a double retirement, and I think poor.
You think Brunson's gonna retire too?
No.
I
think Damian Maia's gonna retire, and then Lyoto Machida. There's gonna be no one left in the stadium to care.
So we got a double R. Double R.
I was thinking of a way to make it a double D, and so I'm going to call it a double deployment. They're both going off to. They're probably both going to Florida. Both coming down to Florida here and retiring.
So they're going to do a double duty on the
So
mats.
right now, no Leslie Smith underdog pick. We do have a live wire in Colby Covington.
I think there's a couple live wires though. I don't think there's. I think there could be a couple strands.
What a weird night of fights.
Because there's a couple in there that
everything. This is all I'm gonna say about it. If you are on the fence about any fighter to pick, just fall on the side of Brazil because that tends to be the way the judges go.
I'm looking at the line. We didn't look at the line for Covington Maia. Who's the favorite in that fight? Betting lines.
I would guess Maia all day.
Colby Covington minus 140.
Are you kidding me on that?
I'm not looking at the fight odds. This is blow out of 5 times.
I think we have an easy Leslie Smith underdog pick.
But he's not an underdog. He's not an underdog.
Damian Maia's not an underdog?
Oh, but I have Covington.
I know, but I can't believe Maia's an underdog.
I know, it's worth money right now. Like
so much.
That's a wager gauger play.
I don't know.
That's
no Leslie Smith this week. It's just
it is
sad.
What it is.
The way it goes.
The heart wants what the heart wants.
And I think that's where we end it there. Follow us on Twitter at Lesbo and The Bean. And for all things Lesbo and The Bean, lesboandthebean.com.
Lesbo and The Bean.